Hi, Jessica here. Let's talk about tables in academic papers. In my view, tables are underappreciated, frequently misused, and expected to carry more than they're designed to. First question to ask yourself, should this be a table? Tables work best when your reader needs to look up or compare specific values across multiple categories. They preserve precision in a way that figures don't and can't. If the exact numbers matter, a table makes them visible. They're also ideal for presenting multiple variables about the same set of subjects side by side. Classic cases where a table is the right choice include demographic characteristics of your study sample, regression coefficients with standard errors and significant levels, a comparison of themes or findings across cases in qualitative work, or a summary of studies in a literature review. You want to exclude a table when the data it contains can be stated in a sentence or two, when it only has one or two rows of data, or when you're not going to discuss its contents in the text. Every table you include should be referenced and discussed in your writing. Avoid dropping it in silently and leaving it for your reader to interpret. A table with no discussion is just data without meaning. One key distinction from figures. If you want to show a trend or pattern visually, a figure is usually the better choice. But if you want to present the precise values behind that trend, use a table. Sometimes, rarely, and I mean rarely, you need both. Rarely, maybe never, but it's possible. A well-structured table has three zones: the column headers, the body, and the notes section below. While the same may seem obvious, I reviewed a paper just earlier today where there were a series of tables and no notes, and I had a lot of questions. So don't forget this prime real estate. Column headers should be concise and include units of measurement. You want to write something like age, parenthesis years, not just age. Avoid abbreviations in headers unless you define them in the notes. Again, notes are prime real estate to do something like that. The body should be organized logically, usually by the most important grouping variable. If you're presenting regression results, organize by model. If you're presenting a sampled description, organized by variable type. Use consistent decimal places throughout a column. Don't mix 12.3% with 8%. You want it to be 8.0% in the same column. This is the kind of inconsistency that signals to a reviewer that you didn't proofread your table, which is not what you want. Alignment matters more than most authors realize. Numbers should be right aligned or decimal aligned so that place values line up vertically. Text should be left aligned. Centered columns of numbers are a common mistake that makes comparison harder and honestly makes the table look like it was formatted by someone who didn't format. Which brings us to the borders. Generally, the default is to use horizontal rules only. 3 lines minimum, 1 below the title, 1 below the column headers, and 1 at the bottom of the table. No vertical lines, no grid boxes, which can make it confusing to read the table. This is almost certainly not what your default Word or Excel table looks like, so make these changes. You'll need to reformat manually. I know, I'm sorry. Do it anyway. It will look cleaner and you'll be happy with the results. Tables are titled, not captioned like figures. And the title goes above the table, which is, again, different from figures, where the caption goes below. This particular rule has a logic to it. You read the title before you look at the table, so it sits at the top, whereas the caption for a figure goes after because the visual lands first. A good table title is concise but complete. It should tell the reader what the table contains without requiring them to read the whole thing first. Include the what, the who, and if relevant, the when and where. You want to avoid vague, simplistic titles like descriptive statistics, when you can write something like descriptive statistics for study participants by gender, ages 18 to 65. The notes section below your table is underused and undervalued. Remember, this is prime real estate. There are 3 types of notes that you can include: general notes apply to the table as a whole, such as the data source, the sample size, and any important context. Anything that you don't want to include in the text or that needs to be repeated. Specific notes apply to a particular column, row, or cell indicated with a superscript lowercase letters in that particular column, row, or cell, and then specified in the notes section. Probability notes communicate significance levels. Don't forget this. Even though we generally know levels of significance, a single asterisk means p less than 0.05, double asterisk means less than 0.01, and so on. Write your notes in complete sentences. Again, this is where you can explain abbreviations, define your measurement criteria, credit your data source, and flag anything that requires interpretation, such as missing data, exclusions, methodological choices that affect what the table shows. Think of the notes as the part of the table where you get to be transparent about its limitations without having to take up space and distract readers in the text. Just a few final points. You want to avoid repeating the text in text what the table already shows completely. Instead, direct the reader to the table and highlight the most important finding. Write something like, as shown in table 2, rates were highest among blah, blah, blah. Keep tables on a single page when possible. If a table must span pages, repeat the column headers on the second page. Readers shouldn't have to scroll or flip back and forth to remember what column 3 means. And if you're submitting to a journal, check whether they want tables embedded in the document or submitted as separate files. Okay, let's talk about reporting statistical outputs, because they're typically reported in table format, and they're typically not correctly reported in the text. This is something I see again and again. Output tables, something I see again and again. Okay, let's start with the fact that output tables are not appropriate for copying into journal papers. Let me say that again. Your output table is not the table you're going to put in your journal paper. You want to read widely in your discipline and copy trends. Find some model papers for examples of if and what kind of statistical tables are appropriate for your paper. And it's your responsibility to accurately interpret and include the most useful results. Don't expect the reviewers to have a deep knowledge of your particular analytical approach. Even your reviewers might not have that broad technical knowledge. Okay, so your job is to interpret results, not make the reader do it for you. Here are some examples. When you have a statistical table, don't in the text say, for example, the ANOVA test produced significant results, and then in parentheses, your parameters. You also want to avoid, for example, the ANOVA test produced significant results, again, your parameters, with a difference in the dependent variable between A and B. Better would be to write there was a significant difference in the dependent variable between A and B, and then your statistics. But best would be A had 23% fewer dependent variable than B with your statistics. You also want to report p-values rather than statistical thresholds, and round to the decimal place whichever precision is needed based on your statistical significance or test. I want to emphasize that every visualization choice shapes how readers understand your work. And I want to encourage you to think like a storyteller while maintaining scientific rigor. Also, check out 2 more videos in this mini-series where I talk about visualization in journal papers generally, and another where I talk about figures and maps specifically. This video complements Draft It, the essential 10-week workshop, a self-paced tutorial to draft your journal paper from abstract to conclusion. Draft It covers topics including how to structure your journal paper, articulating your core argument, writing and refining your introduction and literature review, basic contents and organization, concluding and finishing. It includes but goes beyond the standard IMRAD content. Remember, IMRAD is the acronym for the standard journal selections that include introduction, methods, results, and discussion. Draft It helps you tackle the two most fundamental, essential, critical elements of what elevator research report into a publishable journal paper: a clearly articulated core argument and the structure that supports your entire paper. So if you're ready to publish it, register for Draft It. Register for the self-paced course and you'll have unlimited access so you can start anytime, now, next month, or next year. Find the link in my bio. Thank you for watching this video. Check out my other videos on publishing your research in a peer-reviewed journal paper. Be sure to subscribe as I upload new content monthly.